Morning everyone, I hope you're all well. A little bit of a change of plan again today. I know my plans often change. So what I've decided to do today is, around about this time last year, I visited 4 venues in one day on the Norfolk coast, but didn't fish any of them. So what I've decided to do is, I'm going to return to one of them today, which is going to be Sheringham, and I'm actually going to do some fishing. So this all comes about because last Monday we had a Norfolk Angling Club match, and we used the Sheringham Town beach, but because there was nearly 30 anglers taking part, some of the pegs had to be put on the other side of the lifeboat station, and I was lucky enough to draw peg 8, which was 3 pegs past the lifeboat station, and on the night that's where all the fish seemed to be. And it wasn't only numbers of fish, they were also of a very good average size. So as you can see from the match card, my match card from Monday night, there was some cracking whiting on there. I started off with a bonus dogfish as well, first cast, and then some really good whiting. Normally when you're sort of fishing this time of year, you're putting back more or less the same amount of undersized fish as you're putting on the card, but that wasn't the case for us on Monday up that end. Now the town stretch between the groins, that fished much harder, so what I plan to do today is revisit that end, and I'm going to try and set up in almost the same place as I did on Monday, and we'll see if we can pull out a few decent whiting. As I say, it's not only whiting, there'll be dogfish, I would have thought, possible flounders, maybe the rockling or two, and there is always a chance of an odd bass. There was a few small undersized bass caught, there was a few flounders caught, and I think there was even a sole recorded on the night. So that's what we're going to do. It may not be as prolific because of the major factor on a Monday night obviously is once it gets dark, those whiting shoals move in. So it may be where it's not quite as prolific today, but there should still be enough for us to be going at. So what I'm going to do now, I'm heading down the A140. I've got about 30 minutes to run. It's 7:30 in the morning, and the plan today is high tide is around about 10:45. So I really want to be fishing a couple of hours up and a couple of hours down, and that should give me the best chance, I would have thought. So I'll make my way to Sheringham now. I'll put the route up on the screen. Now if you hadn't watched, as I said, I did make a video with the directions and all the parking and everything on. I'll put that a link at the end of the video here, so you can go back and have a look over that. Also, it will give you an insight to what it looks like at low tide. Now today, by the time I get there, the tide would have covered the bottom of the rocks, so you won't get to see the actual sand part of the beach. So if you look back at that video, that'll give you the layout of it at low tide. Not too bad at all, just over half an hour. Everything was going the other way, which is to be expected. Here's the car parking, so I'm just going to find myself a space now, get some gear on. Rightio, so I've got parked up the top there, and as mentioned before in that previous guide, that's free parking there for 24 hours, loads of space. And it's literally a 5-minute walk down the slope along the front prom there to the lifeboat station, and then I've come about 150 metres past it, and I'm actually set up exactly on the spot I was the other night. And I know that because there's a stone down there that was in front of my rod rest the other night, exactly that stone, and it hasn't moved. So sea nice and flat, quite clear as well for this time of year. And say we've got about just over 2 hours now until high water, so it's probably going to come up to about somewhere there. not much further, as it did the other night. So I'll get set up now, and what I want to try and do today is demonstrate to you another piece of technology I brought with me. It's the Deeper Pro. I've been toying with the idea of chucking it into the sea for quite a while now. Originally it was bought for when I used to do a lot of pike fishing on big lakes and still waters, and it was to find the contours and the depths of the bottom. I've never used it as a fish finder, so I don't believe it is that accurate. It does show fish on there, but I don't really rely on that. All I was interested in was the depth and the contours of the bottom, and that's what I'm going to try and demonstrate today. So again, as in that last guide, you remember that this beach shelves down quite steep, just around the bottom of where that woodwork is there. It levels out onto flat sand, and that's where I intend to fish one of my rods today. I'm going to fish 2 rods. Brought me light rods today, no real reason to be casting out too far, so I brought me little continental rods. I'm going to fish one at the bottom in that gutter and one a little bit further out, and I think we got about 75-80 yards of sand, and then we start picking up a bit of chalk out there, and from what I heard the other night, the people who were right up that end, pegs 1, 2, that area, they did come across a few snags, so they were obviously going out further and getting into that chalk. So what I'll do now is quickly set up a bit of gear. I've already put the shelter up. Dog's already nice and comfortable in the shelter. I've had to take her coat off because she was too hot. Yeah, I'll get a few rods together, I'll get the deeper set up, and then I'll bring you back. Right, so what I want to try today is, and it's something I haven't done before in the sea, I've used this plenty of times in lakes and rivers, it's this deeper sonar. Now, this is a castable sonar. It attaches to the rod and reel. What I'm using is a heavy duty reel there, and that is 70-pound braid on there, and on the end of that I've got a fairly substantial clip which will clip to the deeper when casted out. Now when these things come out, they were a couple of £100, and I wouldn't even consider chucking it out to sea in fearing of crack-offs and losing it. But on lakes and rivers and things like that, you always had the option of either getting a boat and getting it back if it did crack off, so it wasn't so much of a risk. Here in the sea, you cast that out and it cracks off, you probably won't see it again. Now I've had this a few years now, so it's not worth 200 quid anymore. It's quite an old model, but it should do what I want it to do. And basically what I'm going to do is cast it out and try and find the contours of this seabed where the shingle meets the sand, and it'll also give me a depth and a temperature reading. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to attach it to the rod, have a few casts, and then map out the bottom contours of this beach. So once you're ready to start, what I've got is a tripod here with my phone on, and the Deeper app is on there, and that will connect to the sonar and store the information, and I'll display that on the screen. So let's just first do a cast, and then a gentle little lob. As I say, I'm not intending to lose this. I'll chuck that out to where I think the ledge is, somewhere about there. As it hits the water, it'll make an electrical connection with 2 probes that are in that deeper, and then once it's connected to the app like that, it'll start showing me the depth, and then all I do is gently draw that back in using the reel, and that will map from where it landed back to the shore, and it will display it in a graph like you can see on the screen. And as you can see, that gives you the depth, the temperature, and in this case you'll suddenly see the difference between where the shingle reaches the sand. There'll be a marked gully. So that's coming now, it's right on the edge. As I lift it out, it'll disconnect off the app, and then what I do then is recast it. I'll do it 2 or 3 times. This one a little bit further, hits the water, connects with the app, and then again start mapping. Gradually bringing it in, and you see the contours of the bottom. And what you can do with this is you do it several times, and it more or less double checks. You can chuck it in different areas just to see if there's little depressions or whatever in another area on the beach. But as I say, I've not used this on the beach before, so it is the first time. I shan't be using it on a beach where you're going to have to cast it out a long way, again for the fear of cracking off and losing it. With this here, just a gentle lob, probably places like Weybourne, Kelling, not a problem, just gentle lob, hits the water, app comes on, and we're away. Right, I've quickly set up the two rods, two Continentals, fixed ball reels, usual sort of setup, £15 line and a shock leader. And today's baits and rigs are going to be very, very simple as usual. So I've got a couple of 3-hook flappers there, size 2 hooks, £15 snoods. I've also got a smaller loop rig there, and that's the one I'm going to try on closer in on that bottom ledge. Squid, mackerel and fresh blacks are the baits. So my next job is to get them baited up and cast out. Temperature today, it's showing 10 degrees on my phone at the moment. It was 9 as we pulled up in the car park. We've got a light southeasterly wind, but it feels a lot chillier today for some reason. As I said before, sea's flat calm and very, very clear. So not expecting a great deal. I'm certainly not expecting a rush like there was on Monday night, but you never know. And now, baited up on the little loop rig, I've got fresh blacks, one tip with a little bit of squid and one tip with a little bit of fish. That's going in the gutter, about 15-20 yards out. And then on a 3-hook flapper on the other rod, I'm going to put that out about 50 yards, and that's got a mixture of blacks and squid, blacks and fish, and a straight bit of fish on the top. So let's get these rods cast out for the first time and see what's what. And you might have noticed that I've got on the close-in rod, I've just got a plain rolling lead or a pyramid lead. It won't roll as much as normal. It will grip the bottom. And on the other rod, I've started off with a 4-ounce grapnel. Basically, the tide flow doesn't seem that strong, to be fair. So I'll see if I can get away with that. I may even change that over to a plain lead as well, if the tide lets me. I sometimes like to have the grip wires in the sand out there because it does aid hooking fish sometimes. So we'll see how it goes. What am I expecting to catch? Well, going by the match results from Monday night, there should be whiting here. There was pouting caught. There was dabs, flounders and a sole caught. And there was also a little bass and one dogfish, which I was lucky enough to get. That's the sort of thing we can be expecting today. As I said, I don't expect it to be as prolific numbers of fish during the daylight hours, but we will see what we can scratch out. So going back to the deeper, what you could see was at about 40 to 50 yards, the furthest I cast it out, you're only looking at about 6 foot of water at that stage of the tide. So what I'll probably do is, right on high tide, I'll have another recast and see how much difference there is between 2 hours before and high tide. And then it'll be interesting to see how much deeper it is. It's obviously coming up the beach and it's quite steep, so I would have thought the depth difference would show up on that deeper. So that's what I'm going to do. Bang on high tide. I've got it still all rigged up. I'll have a recast into the same area, or both areas in fact. I'll chuck it on the inside as well. Right, the rods have had their first 15-minute soak. Haven't had any signs or indications of anything yet. So I'm just going to get that left hand rod in now, the one that's in close, and have a look at a check of the baits, just to make sure I've still got some bait on them. Completely untouched, and as they went out, so it's not a good sign. I'll just refresh that bottom one because it's like the little bits of squid that were on there have gone. The worm is literally in pristine condition. So I'll just freshen it up a bit. As you probably see, I didn't clip that loop rig up. There's no real need this morning. I'm not going for any massive distance, so it's basically fishing as a one up and one down. I just refreshed the bottom, put a little piece of squid, and I took off the mackerel on the top hook and just fishing straight worm now. And I put it a little bit further out just in case I wasn't quite at the base of this slope. If memory serves me correctly, it's not far past the end of where that wooden groin is, so I use that as a sort of a marker. And that'll be interesting now. See, there's a little bit more tide there now because I think the tip's moving a little bit as the tide's picking that lead up, and that's the plain lead. There's really not much tide at all at the moment. I did find this on Monday night. It went very slack early on, and as soon as the tide picked up, it brought the fish on. As those baits were completely untouched, I'll give that right hand rod just a little bit longer, probably another 5 minutes longer before I check that. Potentially it's going to be the same. It'll just be today again, like normal in these sort of situations, is just keep trying different combinations and different baits, different distances. See if we can find a fish. Someone's come out for a nose and a sniff round. This is quite sure about these pebbles. This is tiptoeing around at the moment. Not quite as comfortable as sand, is it? Let's get that right hand rod in and have a look. Yep, that's exactly the same, completely untouched. The baits are all exactly as they went out. Right, that's the baits refreshed. What I'm going to do is put this out a little bit further this time. I know there's a sort of limit to where I can go before that chalk starts, but it's worth risking just to try and find the edge of it at least. It's about 70-75 yards that went out, and it doesn't actually feel that much deeper out there. It still feels very shallow, a very small drop on the lead. But we shall see. It's got to be a little bit more flow out there, I would have thought. It's just a question of now trying to search out the fish or two. It is noticeably more chilly this morning than it has been of late. We're now on, what, 8th of November today. Just approaching high tide now, so I'm going to give the deeper another chuck and see what the difference is in depth. So when I threw it earlier on, it was 6 foot. It's now only showing 7'2". So the difference, 7'5" now it is. The difference is not a great deal indeed. From 2 hours before to high tide, it's gone up about a foot. I'm gradually bringing it back now, and it's mapping the bottom again, and I'll put that on the screen now. See, as it gets to the bottom of the ledge there, it just suddenly pops up and goes really shallow. Right, let's give this another try, and I'll try and put it out a little bit further. Didn't quite reach that chalk by the feel of it when it came back. It was pretty much clean, so each time I'll bang it a little bit further until I get caught up. The depth doesn't seem to change no matter how far out you're fishing. That still only felt 6 or 7 foot on the lead, the time it took the lead to hit the bottom. The left hand rod now has got a nice little curve on it, although you can't see it from here because it's actually fishing towards the end of that groin. It's got a nice little bend, and that's the plain lead, so that's dug into something or hooked round the back of something, and it's holding it in position. Although, as I said before, there's not a lot of tide flow at all today. That's just a 4 ounce on the other rod, and that's sustained straight out in front. Anyway, we'll give that a go. Give it another 15-20 minutes. There's any need to change it any quicker. It's not getting stripped off. See if we can scratch one out. Right, so what I've done is I've made up a single hook paternoster rig. It's got a 2-foot paternoster, size 10 on there, and it's got a black lug and fish strip cocktail. I'm going to bring the right hand rod in now, which is the furthest one out, and I'm going to bang that as far as I can and just see if that makes any difference with the distance. It may be just this clear water stopping them from feeding. I'm very surprised the flatfish in the edge haven't fed, but that's what the plan is now. I'm going to bang one out as far as I can. Maybe a bit deeper water out there. We'll find out when I hit it. Right, that has gone out quite a way, and it also landed with a clunk, so I should imagine I'm on that chalk. That's what it felt like. It was hard bottom. So whether it comes back will be another thing. This one baits again, completely untouched. So I'll just refresh all these to see if the distance experiment fails. We'll go back to dropping this in a bit closer. Someone's just ventured out with a little coat on. You're nice and toasty under there, aren't you? Hmm? What you come out for? Food? Not time yet, I'm afraid. Well, that was interesting. The bottom hook has actually been snipped off. So that's what's left of it. Just a stop and a bit of line. I assume a crab has done that. So what I shall do, the other bait stripped as well. And that had some pieces of squid on there, so that has been well and truly stripped out. I shall replace that hook link with a standard hook link, I think. I've got one here already on a winder, so I don't need to tie hooks, and I think I can literally just take that off and clip another one on. I shan't bother using it as a loop rig, it'll just literally be one up and one down. But yeah, in that situation, I don't bother tying hooks. I've just literally got a clip there onto the swivel where the other hook link was, a new hook link, and that's been baited up with a black and a squid tentacle. So I'm going to put that back in the same sort of area. You know what they say, where there's crabs there's normally fish, so worth a try. You can still see around the end of that groin there's like a flat spot where it's stirring up the bottom. Right, the moment of truth, I've now got to retrieve that right hand rod, which was punched right out. potentially into that chalk bed. So fingers crossed it comes back. Haven't had any bites or indications, but that was worth a look out there. I should go back to the 3-hook flapper closer in, I think. Well, that was disappointing. Not that I got it back, but the fact it came back still attached to the imp. Now what bait is there has been mullered, so I assume crabs have had that. But yeah, it hadn't released, so virtually, well, exactly 0 chance of catching a fish. It needs to be away from that lead for sure. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll rebait that up and have another go with that. As I say, it came straight off the bottom, wasn't hooked up on nothing. I don't know why that didn't release. Imps, I find, are normally the most reliable. Every now and again you get one. It might have been a bit of fish or something that I'd put on the bottom, so I'm just going to put a couple of tentacles on there this time, something a bit smaller. And what I might do is, instead of using the imp, I might just use the lead this time. Well, I just got all excited then. I thought I saw that left hand rod tapping, but when I walked around the back of it, it's actually the wind's picked up. When you walk out there away from the shelter, there's quite a little breeze there now, and that's affecting both the rod tops, so it's definitely picking up, and it's swung more round to the east now. It was southeasterly or east southeast this morning. Definitely feels like it's coming more along the beach now. Apart from that, still no proper indications or signs of any fish at all, but I shall carry on. We're coming up to 11:45 now. So we've got probably another couple of hours before it hits the bottom of this shingle. Plan is to fish to about 1:30 anyway. So we'll take it up to 1:30 and see if anything improves. Right, I'll change that now to the pulley rig. And I've also changed the hook link over to a clear amnesia. Now, all my other rigs this morning have been red amnesia, which I swear by at night. I don't think it's that's putting fish off, but there's something else to change just to see. I'd be very surprised if it is the hook link colour. I've no doubt if I hung on till dusk or dark, a switch would be thrown and the whole beach would be alive with fish again. But no, I've got no intention of doing that today. Probably got another couple of bait changes. I'll change the big rod once more, and I've got a couple of already prepared baits for the smaller rig, and then that will be about it. Right, last chance saloon now. I know I say it every week. Right folks, I think I'm going to draw a line under it here. Very unusual to go a whole session like that. It's been about 4.5 hours, and not had a single bite as such. So that's the way it goes sometimes. Apart from that, all the rest of the information is here as usual. If you want detailed directions of how to get here and the mark itself, I'll put a link at the end here to the previous video which I done on this area where I didn't fish. And that gives you a more detailed look at the mark. Apart from that, I'm gonna have a pack up now. The dog's telling me it's time to go because she's sort of sat out there by the beach looking back towards the car, so that's always a good sign for her. She's had enough. So I'm going to have a quick pack down now and then get back to the car and get home. Thank you very much for watching again. Sorry there hasn't been a single fish today. It's been pleasant, but I always like to put a fish on there as well, but never mind, next time. Probably be back in Suffolk next week. Thanks for watching, bye bye.